Hello everyone, we are Katie and Joe.
And you may be noticing that this video looks a little bit different than the other 8 national park videos on our channel, and that is because when we reached out to Joshua Tree National Park, we were unable to get a filming permit. But we did go. Our goal has always been to visit all 63 U.S. national parks. Whether or not we can film in them, we still want to experience it. So we did go, we had a good time, and we're going to talk about it.
So in today's video, we are going to talk about what we did in Joshua Tree National Park, some good information when planning your trip, and so much more. So stick around.
Let's jump right into it. Joshua Tree National Park is just a few hours drive from several major metropolitan areas. It's about 140 miles from Los Angeles, 175 miles from San Diego, and less than 4 hours from both Las Vegas and Phoenix.
Which is crazy because when we were in Phoenix a few weeks ago, it took us roughly the same amount of time to drive to Grand Canyon than it would to take you to Joshua Tree. So like you could do a weekend trip from Joshua Tree from Phoenix very easily.
And we never
even thought about that.
But because it is so close to so many largely populated areas, you do have to contend with crowds, which we will talk about a little bit later in the video and give some tips on how best to handle that to still have an enjoyable experience even when everyone and their mom is there with you.
Yeah.
There are 3 entrances into the park. There's a west entrance, which is closest to Los Angeles and the busiest entrance, a north entrance near the town of 29 Palms, and a south entrance off of Interstate 10.
When you are planning your trip to Joshua Tree, you really want to make sure that you are coming into the entrance closest to where the activities are. You don't want to be crisscrossing the park.
It takes about 45 minutes to go from the west entrance to the north entrance, an hour to go from north to south, and about an hour and a half from the west to the south entrance. So if you are going in the south, but the first thing you want to do is up by the west, you're going to be driving an hour and a half to even get to your first activity.
Right.
Better off looking at the map, planning on where you're going in, and then try to pick things along the route so that you're not going back and forth, because there aren't any facilities within the park for gas. And you don't want to be exiting at one of these towns to try to find gas just because you were all over the place in the park. There are 4 visitor centers in Joshua Tree National Park. 2 are in the park itself, and 2 are actually outside the park. One is in the town of Joshua Tree, the other one is in the town of 29 Palms.
Of all the national parks that we have visited, this is the first time where the visitor center is not actually in the park.
But that worked out well for me because the visitor center is actually in walking distance to the world famous Crochet Museum. While we were there, we walked over because I don't know if you know this on this channel yet, but I am a big crochet person. Here are some examples of the things I worked on.
Not an actual crocheted person.
But I probably could crochet myself. It was really fun. It's run by a local artist. There's a cute little building with all these little crochet pieces inside. I bought souvenirs. I was really disappointed because you can donate to the Crochet Museum. Like you could bring something that you've crafted, and I didn't have anything ready. And that just means we have to go back.
Oh, right.
And I have more to contribute this time. So.
That's true.
I don't know about you, but I had a really good time visiting the Crochet Museum. So if you're in the area, any way to go to the visitor center, walk over, support a local artist, and see the fun little crafts you can make with just a little bit of yarn.
That's true.
Thank you for humoring me on my little crochet side tangent, but let's get back on track and talk about the best time to visit the park.
So for the best weather, you're looking at fall and spring because in the summer it gets really hot, well over 100, and the sun's quite bright and hot. In the winter, it does snow in Joshua Tree, so you do need to prepare for that. But we know this, and so does everyone else who's interested in visiting the national parks. So during the spring and fall, you'll also get an influx of people who are visiting the national park. So if you can tolerate the cold, go in the winter. If you're kind of into the summer, go there.
You won't be able to do, well, at least it's not recommended to do a lot of the hiking in the heat of the summer because it's just not safe. And then the winter, obviously cold. So if you can handle people, going in the spring and fall, if you're willing to kind of put up with the crowds, you will have a better temperature experience. But if those extremes of weather don't scare you, then you might enjoy a little bit of a quiet, peaceful visit to the park if you visit in those other off seasons. All right, let's talk about cell service in the park. The NPS website says that there's limited service within the park, but from experience, we found that there's basically none. So if you are going into the park, we highly recommend, and we recommend this for any national park, to offline map the whole area on Google Maps and also download the park information from the NPS app. They have an offline feature there where you can still see the trails, get different information about the whole park and still like be able to plan stuff without having any service. Because I think we had service for one tiny little speck in that park the whole time we were there.
As a reminder, you need to download it before you get to the park. So like before you even leave your house, that's the best time to download your offload maps, because the moment you get to the park, you're out of luck.
You lose service. And we actually had that happen in Death Valley. We thought right as we were pulling in, hey, we should probably offline the map. And we already didn't have service, so that didn't go well. Okay, so what is there to actually do in Joshua Tree National Park?
That's a great question, Katie. There's rock climbing. Did we participate in rock climbing?
Nope.
No, but we do have some fun facts about rock climbing. There are a bunch of climbs, and by a bunch, I mean 8,000 different climbing routes and over 2,000 bouldering problems. That's a lot of climbing.
Yeah, there's a lot, and we saw it, and they looked like they were having a good time. All right, one of my favorite things that I don't get to participate in near as often as I would like, mainly because I'm afraid of the dark, is...
Like we could do it whenever, but we don't like the dark because aliens and ghouls.
It's stargazing. Joshua Tree National Park is a designated international dark sky park, which is amazing considering its close proximity to towns such as Los Angeles, Phoenix, Las Vegas, all of those. It's really cool that you could go just a few hours drive and get a really dark sky and maybe see the Milky Way for the first time in your life. There are even designated stargazing areas within the park, and there's little like signs of like you park here and then like turn that way and look up at the sky. There are even ranger-led stargazing, not like hiking trips, but just like meetups, which remember how I said I was afraid of the dark? Intrigues me and makes me excited the most because you don't have to be out deep on the trail alone.
Right.
And it's really cool that they have that designation. And if you are going, highly recommend staying into the night. If you can get a camping spot, great. If not, still just stay to see the dark sky, because so often you don't get to see it. We live in major metropolitan areas. You don't really have the opportunity to take in the beauty of the night sky, and it's just spectacular. One of my favorite things. Fair warning though, if you do stay without having a camping spot, you can't just pull off and camp, if that makes sense. If you pull off on a spot to stargaze, you have to stay within 20 feet of your vehicle and stay awake, or else you could get fined.
Which is a really weird rule because the park is open 24/7, 365. So like, there's a lot of just like unknowns with like how that works. Like if we park the van and we go for a hike, but we start the hike at 4 a.m., are we liable to get a ticket?
We've been concerned about too, because we have a camper van that it 100% of the time looks like someone could be camping in there because it's a camper van. So we debate this and talk about it all the time, but the designation that we saw on the NPS website this time was the 20 feet rule, which is something I hadn't heard before, but it makes sense. So you could see the ranger pull up and be like, oh, hey, I'm out here taking pictures of the stars. Just keep that in mind, because I am certain they go around and check, especially because it's busy and sometimes it's hard to get a campsite. So keep that in mind, stay awake, but do look at the stars.
But it's good though, because right now we usually only do 20-foot hikes. So we're We'll be going into more detail about camping and offering alternatives if you are unable to find a campsite within the park a little bit later in the video, so stick around for that. All right, moving on, more things to do. Joey, talk us about the ranger programs. We love ranger programs. It took us a few parks to get into the ranger programs, so now we've basically done one every park we've gone to.
So we're talking about guided hikes, talks, even there's a stargazing chaperone in Joshua Tree. There's so many ways to learn more about the park and get information from the experts, because the rangers know so much and they love to share it.
They love to talk.
I'm sad that we didn't consider them early on in our national park journey, and that's why we are imparting our wisdom onto you. 99% of the time they're free. So it doesn't cost you anything, and you get to take your park experience from like here to here, because they are so valuable. And if you're a fan of crosswords and coloring books while also learning about our wonderful national parks, what do we have a program for you? You're rewarded with trinkets and you get to learn things. What more could you ask for? Junior Ranger program. They have it at Joshua Tree. It's another fun program that is not age
just for
restricted.
adults.
It says Junior Ranger, but that doesn't mean children. Anyone can do it, and you earn a little badge, and I love a reward.
Select a reward.
We've found through the last couple parks that it is one of the best ways to learn about the park in like a very straightforward, bite-sized information sort of way.
Right.
And we found that once we do the Junior Ranger program, we feel so much more satisfied in the park.
Oh yeah.
Like we actually know what's going on instead of just like vibing with
pretty.
the views. Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, why is it pretty? Why is this unique? And all of that. We feel smarter after we do the Junior Ranger booklet.
We do, and we get sworn in with our badge. Can't go wrong. So we highly recommend that, but just taking advantage of the free programs that they offer, it really does make visiting the national park that much better.
Absolutely.
All right, this may come as no surprise, but a popular thing to do in the park is to hike and sightsee.
And there are a lot of hiking trails, whether you want to do the super strenuous 15-mile trails, or if you're just looking for a nice, easy stroll on a paved surface, Joshua Tree provides.
Yeah, you have wheelchair accessible routes, lots of flat, nice, easy stuff. So it really, no matter your ability, there is something for you to do there, which we really appreciate, because when you think of a national park, oftentimes you think the strenuous hikes, like climbing a mountain, doing all these things, but to know that people of all abilities can go and get on trail and get more out of the park, we love to see it.
Yeah.
Joshua Tree is at the convergence of the Mojave Desert and the Colorado Desert, so they come together in the middle of the park. So depending on what trail you are on and where you are in the park, you're gonna see a little bit of a different environment, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna talk about parking. There isn't a lot of parking considering the volume of visitors that Joshua Tree gets. I think it's upwards of 3 million people annually, which makes it one of the top 10 most visited national parks. That's a lot of people, a lot of cars. And while we did visit in the middle of the week on our visit, we still saw the crowds and had to drive by some places we wanted to hike at because there weren't enough parking spots. It also doesn't help that we have a 24-foot long giant big red van named Clifford. Our best advice is to choose where you're hiking and what you're seeing based on where you find a parking spot. Don't have your heart set on one location, find a good parking spot, and then explore the area around that. What you shouldn't do, and what you may be tempted to do, is park on the side of the road. Oftentimes, and we've seen it, cars will start pulling off on the side and parking, so you might think it's allowed because a bunch of other people are doing it, but it certainly is not allowed. What is the citation?
It's $180, and when we were at Joshua Tree, we saw a ranger walking down the line
giving those citations.
Giving citations.
So be a good steward of our national parks. It may seem like everyone else is doing it, I can do it too. Don't try to pull a fast one, just move on, find parking elsewhere. There is so much to see and do that wherever you park, you'll find a beautiful view, a beautiful walk.
Right.
Let's talk camping. There are 515 campsites within Joshua Tree National Park, and 85% of those you're able to make a reservation. So for all of you planners out there, up to 6 months in advance, you can reserve a campsite, 85% of those 515 sites. And then for all of you non-planners and more spontaneous people, there are 77 first come, first served campsites, which we love that there is that option, but you have to get there early. And even if you are there early, there's no guarantee that one will be available, especially on a weekend in the busy season. If you want a first come, first serve, you have to be there, because we tried to get one and nothing. So it's nice that there is that option and a decent number. 77 is kind of a lot. It's a good amount. So keep that in mind. Something to note is that all of the different campgrounds have varying prices. You can see those here. And even better news, and something I wish we had known before going, there are alternatives if you can't get a campsite within the national park. There are private campgrounds outside of Joshua Tree, and there are also 2 BLM campsites.
Yeah.
I guess campsite is not the right term. This is dispersed camping.
Just land.
It is land where you are allowed to sleep overnight, but it is a free option, and we love free. So you can see here on the map, there is a BLM plot of land north of Joshua Tree. There's also one just outside the south entrance of the park. If that is something you are capable of, self-contained, I would consider it. Save yourself a little bit of money, and we saw people doing that on our way out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the cleanest. Please be better. Pick up after yourself, but it is a free option. What you've all been waiting for, our trip to Joshua Tree National Park. Let's talk about it.
We visited Joshua Tree after visiting Death Valley National Park, which if you want to go watch that video on our channel, it looks like this. it was in the middle of April, in the middle of the week.
Yeah, so we drove down in through 29 Palms and approach the park through the north entrance.
Yeah.
We pulled in, like we said previously, we tried to find a first come first serve campsite with no luck. And then we did find a parking spot where we were able to meander the Joshua trees and get our first look at that very unique plant. We made our way to the trailhead for the Hidden Valley Trail, which is one of the most popular in the park.
It's because that's where they make the ranch.
We were really fortunate. The parking lot was actually pretty empty when we pulled in, I think because it was still pretty early in the day. And we really enjoyed this trail.
Yeah, it wasn't super technical, it wasn't super long. It kind of meandered through the big rocks of Joshua Tree, and we watched a bunch of people rock climbing, and we saw a lizard.
A giant
It was
lizard.
a big boy.
But he was just sunbathing, no bother to anyone. It's actually kind of cool to see when you know they're not gonna jump out and get you. After we did that trail, we drove up to Keys View, and this was a first for me. I had visited Joshua Tree National Park back in 2017 and had a very good time, but my experience then was that the western, like northwestern section of the park was all that there was to offer. I thought it was just that section.
Yeah.
So when we drove up to Keys, we were high up. We were
high.
at like 5,000 feet elevation,
Yeah.
and it was a big surprise to me, quite beautiful.
Yeah, very pretty, very easy drive up. We did it in the van with the bike on the back, so no issue with there. But just, you could see so much of the valley underneath. It was very pretty.
You could probably see the stage at Coachella down there, as Indio down below us.
That's true.
Get some big old binoculars
Yeah.
and just. From Keys View, we drove about, what would you say, 45 minutes,
Yeah.
half hour, down to the Cholla Cactus Garden. This was at the top of my list of places to view sunset. I had my heart set, and it worked out that there was a parking spot, and it was so beautiful and peaceful to wander through the Cholla Cactus Garden as the sun went down.
While we were at the gardens, it was a little disappointing to see the sheer amount of people who walk off the trail. Once, you're not supposed to walk off trails in national parks. Like, don't do that. We know that. But you're also not supposed to do that in a field of cactus. And karma is a thing, and the amount of people who walked off trail who then got pokies in their legs or their arms wasn't surprising in any way.
It was disappointing to see. It hurts the vegetation. Like, your picture's not going to be significantly better 3 feet off the trail than it is on the trail. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And especially in a freaking cactus garden.
Yeah. Karma.
After sunset, we had mentioned earlier in the video that we had a brief moment of cell service. We were able to do a same-day booking for the Cottonwood Campground in the southern part of the park. It's a nice campground, relatively small, but it had nice facilities. It gave us a place to sleep, and it was relatively quiet.
Yeah. I would say most campgrounds like kind of like pull into the spot. This one was kind of in parallel with the road. So at any time there was a car within like 5 or 6 feet of us driving by.
Oh yeah, everyone was on top of each other.
Yeah.
It was a tight space.
Yeah.
But it was nice to have a place to sleep because we didn't know about the BLM that was located just down the street. Had we known, we may have tried to save the $25.
Yeah.
But because we were in the campground, we were able to finish our Junior Ranger books and then go to the Cottonwood Visitor Center, which is the visitor center at the south entrance, get sworn in, get some souvenirs. And then that was the end of our time in Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
Finally, let's go over some tips when visiting Joshua Tree, how to beat the crowds, how to have a good experience no matter what time of year you're going there, what type of crowds you see. First and foremost, this is kind of true for any national park, get there early.
Yeah.
It's recommended to be in the park before 8 a.m. at the trailhead you want to see before 9 a.m. You can do it even earlier because this park is open 24 hours a day, 365. All the other numbers that come after that.
There's a 7 in there.
There you go. You can go whenever you want, which kind of stems back to your concern is when is it considered?
Yeah, when is it considered camping versus when is it considered me just getting there early?
Yeah, so it's cool. We had just been to Petrified where you cannot go in before the park opens. This one, it's open all the time, so you can stroll in whenever you want. Earlier the better, especially if you have your heart set on a particular spot within the park.
Yeah.
Another tip is if you are camping in the park, hike where your campsite is, because your car is in the campsite, and most of the campgrounds have different paths leading from it. So just taking advantage of the parking spot you have because you paid for it at the campsite. Same goes for if you find a place to park when you're just visiting on a day trip, hike where you park.
Yeah.
Again, don't have your heart set on a particular itinerary, especially if you're there on a weekend. in a crowded time of year. But come with a plan. Just come with a plan, but also the flexibility to adjust the plan if you aren't able to get parking.
Another tip is if your route can take you into the north or the south entrance, do that. The west entrance is the direct route in from LA. It will be the busiest entrance.
We've said this many, many times so far. Weekends are probably the worst time to visit. So again, if your schedule permits, going during the week would be a way to attempt to avoid the crowds. And then a big one, if you stay till sunset, do not immediately hop in your car to try to exit the park, because every single person who's there for sunset and doesn't have a campsite will also be trying to exit the park. Yeah. So you'll likely sit in traffic. So instead of just sitting in the car, maybe just stroll around a path, because the sun isn't dark
right,
right after sunset. But I guess just prepare yourself. Know that there are crowds, but crowds doesn't mean you're gonna have a bad experience. Just go in with the expectation that things may have to change and you might be on a crowded trail, but that's okay. The park is still beautiful. There's still so much to see, and just make the most of your visit.
Yeah.
All right, final thoughts. What'd you think of Joshua Tree National Park?
It was very crowded, and I know we went in the middle of the week and it was still really crowded, and it was just very crowded with a certain type of people. The flat brims, the cameras, the influencer stuff, which is weird because like we were same, but
it is a different type of person that was at the park than what we've seen before. It was more people there for the photo, which is fine. Visit a national park wherever you. There's no wrong way to visit a national park, and if you are there to take some sexy photos of yourself with a Joshua tree, right on. That's totally fine. But it was.
Do we have any sexy photos of us?
I do. Here you go.
Wait, really? Dang.
So don't be me. No. It is a different type of person, and it made us feel a certain way. But again, no wrong way to visit. So if that's how you do it, that's fine. Just no.
Yeah. But when we were there, I think it wasn't overly beautiful in my mind. I didn't really I wasn't sure, like my jaw didn't drop, all of those things. But like looking through the content, like all the photos and videos that we shot over the last few days as we were preparing for this video, it was really pretty. And I don't know why I wasn't so excited. I don't know if it was just a point in the trip when we were tired or what it was, but I am excited to go back.
I think we've, up until this point, we've thought of Joshua Tree as a non-return type of park. Like we saw what we saw, it's fine. And then literally looking back at the photos we took, we were like,
was this there?
Beautiful.
Yeah, was this the same place?
What? And now we're amped to return.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had a good time. I think when we go back, because it's a when, not if, doing the stargazing, our campsite in the southern part of the park, we pulled in late. We just didn't have the oomph and ambition to go out and shoot the stars. And I'm gonna tell myself that it was cloudy. I don't know if it was. I'm gonna put that memory in my brain. I want to go back to stargaze. I love the idea of that. I love that they have ranger chaperone stargazing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to going back. Yeah. So if you've been to Joshua Tree, tell us your thoughts. If you're thinking of going and you need some help with planning, hop in the comments. We'd love to talk about it. We love talking about the parks. If you liked this video, hit that like button. If you like us, hit that subscribe button and see more of us. We actually would really like to know your thoughts on this video, because we did hit the hiccup of not getting the filming permit. Is this a format that you like? Let us know how we can improve and help you. You can help us, so we can help you, exactly. Thanks for watching. This just got awkward.
Okay, bye.
That's it. I want people to go.
Katie's a crochet museum ambassador.
It's also really photogenic, so
that's true.
If you want the vibe.
It also smelled weird.
Yeah.